Welcome back, Viva YG Latino. We are happy. Si se perdieron el programa anterior con Kunle, aquí vas a poner arriba o acá abajo. Veremos dónde, para que le den clic y vean la entrevista que tuvimos anterior. Y seguimos otra entrevista con nuestro amigo Kunle, que nos va a hablar sobre mental health y su importancia. Pero para eso está Makami College y Blanca Vera, que lo trajo aquí a Viva YG Latino nuevamente. Blanca, qué gusto tenerte nuevamente.
Gracias, Giuseppe, gracias también a tu audiencia. Y bueno, creo que en estos tiempos un poco más caóticos que antes, es importante checar un poquito nuestra salud mental. Y para eso, bueno, pues invité a Kunle, él es el psicólogo del colegio de Makami. En el programa anterior hablamos un poquito acerca de los servicios que él y su equipo ofrecen a nuestros estudiantes. Y bueno, Kunle, thank you so much for being with us again. And we are going to talk about something that is very important, mental health. How can you take care of your mental health? And how you know that your mental health is not, let's say, 100%?
Yeah, good questions. Well, you know what? I'm going to start with maybe what I call self-awareness. And self-awareness is just your ability to kind of understand yourself and be able to have certain indicators to understand when you're functioning the way you should, and when you're feeling the way you should, and when you're responding the way you should. So a good place to start is self-awareness, trying to understand when you think you're functioning well, and observing that, and almost taking a mental picture of that. And then you have something to compare when you're not doing well. And I think, so how do you do, what's a good way to have self-awareness? So, well, take some mental breaks, and some people do breathing exercises where you're just doing shallow breathing. You don't have to do it for a long period of time, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, where you're just breathing and observing how your body feels, and observing what's happening in your mind and how you're feeling for that time. And other people do meditation, which it's either centered around breathing or it's not. It's just mainly allowing yourself to observe your thoughts and and how these thoughts are making you feel. So taking time for yourself, but you can just take a walk. Walk is another way to separate yourself from the world so you can feel how you're doing. And then you have a comparison. The biggest challenge, I think, is that people are just so busy doing, they have no time to observe. So then when you've provided yourself this time to observe, now you can know when you're doing well and when you're doing poorly, and developing strategies to help yourself maintain that. So that's the beginning, is just be more self-aware. And then you can start understanding, okay, well, I'm doing well now. What am I currently doing now to maintain this state of doing well? So I should do more of that. And then when you're doing poorly, what am I doing that's different from when I was doing well? And how do I get back to that? That's really the core. And of course, there's lots of strategies, like going to a therapist if you feel like you need that, but you can exercise. There really is unlimited things you can do in between that. But it all starts with understanding yourself, understanding when you're doing well, when you're doing poorly. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge. People just don't have enough time to think about themselves and how they're doing. So that when they go away from who they should be or how they should function, they don't recognize how far they are.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's the beginning, developing some self-awareness. Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned, before I lost the track here,
mm-hmm.
You mentioned that we are busy all the time, right? But at least you have to make a little bit of time. What will be like 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Absolutely.
What will be your recommendation? First thing in the morning before you are, or after you get up and you are making your coffee or your tea, or at nighttime when everybody is, going to sleep and kind of prepare yourself to have a good sleep. What would be, do you think, your recommendation for most of the people that maybe they have 2 part-time jobs or 1 full-time job that demands a lot? Maybe they have 2-3 kids. Maybe they have parents.
Sounds like me.
Okay, right? Blanca, forget about the bio, okay?
Or maybe they want to, you're like, poof, put you as an example. But what do you think that will be the best time or the best recommendation for people to start trying to be aware? What are we doing with our mental health, or how to improve our mental health?
Yeah, well, so interesting. My take on that is the more opportunities you have to be able to take this picture yourself and find yourself, the more of the day that you're going to be at the right level. So, so if I compare somebody saying doing 20 minutes of breathing 1 time a day versus doing 5 minutes 4 times a day, I would say do 4 times a day, 5 minutes. Because then, like, let's say you do 20 minutes right before the start of the day, and you center yourself and you find a real good period of calm. As the day goes, you'll be losing that calm, like because you interact with the world, right? So then, so let's say you're very low here, and now it goes up, it goes up, it goes up, it goes up, and by the end of the day, you're way up here. What I would like to see is somebody, maybe at the beginning of the day, before they're out to go and tackle the world, is find a place of calm, reset right at the beginning, and then maybe at lunchtime you reset again, you bring yourself back down, so you're staying in a state of calm for a longer period of time throughout the day. And because a state of calm, you're functioning your most ideal. But if, say, you just do it in the morning, and then then you're out of the state of calm for most of the day, and you're functioning and it's out of the state of calm most of the day. So you're not allowing to get the benefit of that. So that's one of my recommendations. Better to do it multiple times in short periods of time than to do it one long period of time. Now, the other thing I also would recommend is it's good to do in transition points. So myself, for example, I like to do it first thing in the morning before coming to work. So that's a transition point. So I'm changing from one environment to another environment, and I want to start in that environment in a real strong way. So I do it in between that transition. But I also like to do it when I come home in the evening before I go with my family, and I want to go there in a positive place. So I do it that transition point. So when you have these different transition points and you're going to different spaces, these are also good times to take that 3 to 5 minute break. Whether it's in your car, coming from leaving so you walk out of your house, you go in your car before you go out your driveway, you do it right inside there. And then you get to work, you're there. And then before you go home, before you go in your house, you do it there. You know what I mean? So those are my recommendations, because then everyone benefits from these transitions, not just the people that you see first thing in the morning. Your family does, your workers do. So I think that's a really good place to go. Yeah.
Kunle. Excellent. Kunle, how many types of mental health exist?
How many types of mental health?
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure I can answer that one, Giuseppe. Can you give me an example so I can know what the reference is, maybe?
Okay. It's a mental health, mental health issues, and I have a different types of situation.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Oh, wow. Well, there's
3, 2, go ahead.
I haven't counted in a long time.
No, 3, 2, 1, and they say, okay, go ahead. To put the question.
Yeah.
Recap.
Well, maybe I'll tell you the ones that are the most common. And so they have a book called a DSM. I think we're at DSM 5R or maybe even 6 now. So the DSM is called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. And this is the book that psychiatrists and psychologists use to diagnose different mental health conditions. This book gets revised every 3 to 5 years. We add some, remove others, and there's a thick book. So there's a lot of different conditions. So and they change, believe it or not. Like, for example, now we know there's internet addiction. There's gaming addiction. These things 30, 40 years ago didn't exist.
Right.
So there's new conditions that we put in there based on how the world changes. And some conditions that we thought were conditions in the past, we no longer call them conditions. Because as society changes what is normal, what we think is normal changes, period. So so to say how many is very difficult because it's transitioning and it's ever changing. But the ones that are most common, like depression and anxiety, are the common cold of mental health issues, meaning that many people and throughout their lives will deal with it one time or another. So they're the most prevalent. And then the different ones have more challenges, but certainly stress, anxiety, and depression are the most common ones that most people will be touched with at some point in their lives. And then the other ones are really depending on your biology, your environment that you've been raised in, and a bunch of other elements. So lots, but most of us will deal with these very specific ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Anxiety, depression,
and stress.
Yes.
Those are the three cases.
Most common.
Yeah.
Okay. And for students, right now, what is the most common emotional and mental?
Just the ones that I mentioned. Like those ones are the most common in society, and they're also most common in school, especially and maybe with some increases just because of the challenge of trying to be a successful student. So they might be a little bit higher than the typical population because of the fact that school itself can add to the stressors. And stress is a trigger for both anxiety and depression. So, but we do have other students who have personality disorders, other mood disorders like bipolar mood disorder, as also seeing lots of different conditions in here. Yeah. Excellent. But those ones are definitely the most common, the ones that I mentioned.
What measure doesn't take to prevent students from falling into depression?
What does it take? Support. That's what it takes. Support from family, friends, and then if that's not available, more formal supports like psychology. Yeah, but really, it's all about support. It's being able to have somebody that you can process your life with, and that allows you to process it in a non-judgmental way. I think that's a difficulty with, even though we have friends and family, the challenge with friends and family, sometimes they try to, advise us on what to do, and they can do it in maybe a judgmental way, so that makes people less likely to utilize these people because they're concerned about the judgment, and so that they don't want to reach out and use people that they could use. And so a psychologist has been trained to observe and help you process information in a non-judgmental way. Yeah. So if you have friends that can do that for you, and then you don't need us. But not everyone necessarily has that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important because I think since we are little kids, we are trained by our parents, by our teachers to be successful. If you don't get an A, you're a failure. If you don't get that B, you fail. And then we go home and our parents say, hey, you're not doing well in the school, but your sister or your brother does, and they get rewards, right? It's always a comparison between either the own family. And we grow up with those stigmas, with all examples that if I don't get an A, I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to be popular. I'm not going to be... And I think that adds to our mental health to grow up in an environment that if I go to somebody or my best friend, they're going to judge me. They're going to think that I am stupid
or
weak or I cry all the time. So how we can, this generation right now, for 10 years ago, they were not that, social media wasn't that common. And right now, and I think with the pandemic, social media explode, but in a way that instead of inspire people to do well, they criticize more the looks of a person, I didn't finish university, or I didn't finish this or that, I am a failure, I am not able, or I am a person that don't deserve to be happy, or don't deserve to be successful.
Well, yeah, I think you touched on lots of things there, Blanca. Actually, there's lots of information. But I'll just speak to a couple of things. Well, first, I would just say, because we're speaking to a cultural audience, I think one of the, just from my experiences, supporting people, Spanish-speaking people from different countries, one of the reasons they didn't leverage their community is because of judgment. To be honest, that's one of the reasons. They are very aware that that people may criticize them or judge them, or are too busy to care about their issues. People got their own issues. Why do they need to hear mine? So I've heard that several times from people in the Latin community and other communities, but just because it's a Latin audience, I've heard that several times. So they're very reluctant to leverage people around them, because people will say that, who wants to hear me whining?
Right. Yes.
So they won't leverage people, which is too bad. Yeah.
Kunle, in the last program you say the freedom is the big issue, and right now you say the judgment. That's correct?
Yeah, judgment. Yeah.
Judgment. In your personal opinion, for the people they see this program, and if you don't say the last program, I will recommend it. What is the key or support that you explain to the people they see the program?
Oh boy. Well, you know what? Well, it's interesting, and because again, because we're ethnic culture, is that when we find ourselves in a different country than our normal country, we come to a place now we expect each other to be independent and not require each other's help, which is kind of ironic, because it's exactly when we need each other's help, when we're no longer have our supports that we had back home.
Right.
So we kind of adopt the North American way of thinking, and we forget about the independence and the connection we had back home. And what we need to do is not do that. We need to continue to connect and support each other when we're here. So find ways to get those connections that we had before, because what makes us feel isolated and alone and stressed out and anxious is when we feel no one cares and we're on our own here and our family's not here.
Right.
So we need to make sure we create those networks here. Yeah.
And they can go to office or a government office, or they can either now with social media found or call 211 line.
Right. Yeah, like, so for formal supports, absolutely. Like, there's lots of formal supports. Thanks for Blanca. And I think that's what you're talking about. There's tons of formal supports that are cost effective. As Blanca mentioned, 211, there's the stress line. There's lots of different counseling places that will do counseling for almost free if you reach out. There's actually drop-in counseling throughout Alberta that you can get for free. So there's lots of free resources. But I think the informal ones, the ones that we can use with our friends and families, and be way more open-minded and understand that people don't need you to solve their problems all the time. They just want to be able to express themselves. Don't think you have to say, well, you do this is the answer. Not everybody wants that. They just want to know that somebody cares enough to listen.
Right. Which is important, right? It's
just
like
that's it.
The interaction. Even with a coworker, with your neighbor, right?
Exactly.
It start like there, and then your circle of your connection or interaction with other people grows and grows and grows.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I there's probably several examples, but there's just one person, and whether it's myself or somebody else listening within the college, it can empower a person to feel like they can continue to move forward. So all it takes is one person. And it can be a trained person like myself or a non-trained person that learns how to do it in a non-judgmental way. So, yeah.
Kunle, I have a question. For this situation or this problem, the mental health, what is the service that you offer in the college?
Yeah, so it's really simple. We have 2 psychologists that people can access depending on what site they're on. So in Edmonton, it's basically me physically, but then we have a female psychologist that is available via online services that you can also receive if you're not comfortable with the male or me, who knows, and then we can give you that person's contact. And same thing, vice versa. So in Calgary, if you were wanting to access the services, there are female psychologists that you can work with. If you prefer a person with different gender, then they can access me online. So those are really the services. In fact, and we do it beyond the individual. We also do couples counseling and families support too, if people think that would be useful. Yeah. So yeah, we're pretty proud of the support that we provide. Yeah.
Kunle, how can we improve more our positive thinking in anything that we do, either call it a job, call it interaction with your family, interaction with your mates or student colleagues? How can we keep that positive mind in almost these difficult times when we are coming through or living a pandemic that really made us struggle to everybody? Some people, we were more resilient than others, but how can we keep a positive mind or a positive thinking going and moving forward?
Well, first I'll just say that that's huge. Our positive thinking is huge. Because our thoughts really create our perception of reality and in a sense of where we feel we are in the world. So if we create a more positive environment, that is huge. Now, we're kind of going full circle. So one of the best ways to create a positive environment is, first of all, be aware, self-aware of your negative thoughts. Most of us are, and all of us actually as human beings, are programmed to think in a negative way. Because the negative things that can affect us can damage us. Positive thoughts, if you don't have them, there's no negative consequence other than if you don't be positive.
Yes.
But negative things, if you're not thinking about them, they can get you. So our minds are pre-wired to think about more negative thoughts. But unfortunately, the brain doesn't really judge the accuracy of the negative thought. So we can think negatively about things that aren't really true.
Right.
And so our brain is constantly making up thoughts that could or could not be true. And if we're thinking and we're taking them all for truth, then we're going to be in a negative place. So being aware of the negative thoughts that are not grounded in truth and making sure we can neutralize them is a good place to start. Just neutralizing the negative ones. And so this is self-awareness. So like I said, talked before, if you're sitting there breathing and you're processing and thinking of these thoughts, some of these negative thoughts might be there.
Can go away.
Yeah, and well, there's 2 things you can do is be aware, hey, why am I thinking that? And how realistic is that? Is that true? And then challenge it. Well, no, it's not. And then remove it. But we have to be able to hear it. If you're so busy, you don't even know that's in the back of your mind. You don't know that you're having these thoughts because you're so busy.
Right.
Well, I'll just give a personal example. Like when I was younger, I would find myself just being so busy, like ridiculously busy, to the point I would be exhausted. And then I'd have to rest for 2 or 3 days. And I kept on having these cycles. I was like, what the hell am I doing to myself? And what I realized is at some point that when I was younger, my dad always made us have this insane work ethic, because he told us, we're so lucky to be in Canada and have these opportunities which people do not have. And if we're wasting it, we're totally disrespecting the opportunity. So this was always in my mind. I never knew how much it was in my mind. So I found myself probably pushing myself way harder than I should. That's actually realistic. And then I realized it was silly. And then when I realized that was the thought, I started saying, well, you've done enough. Take a break. You don't need to do any more. And then I found myself more balanced. So when you're able to listen to these messages and understand what these messages are, you can fight them. So that's why to think more positive is think less negative.
Less negative. Good point. Kunle, that's my last question. You say you are very, okay, I have things to do, a lot of activities, I have this. But sometimes it's another point is people, they have the situation, they say, oh, I have my full agenda, but then the result is not that they expect the expectation, You say I have a lot, but then the result is nothing or it's very short. What is your message for them? Or your...
Okay, so I think I understand the question. Are you saying that sometimes people are really busy and then they have expectations that are too high? What I would say to that is, Giuseppe, we are the ones who create our own reality and make our choices in terms of what we want to do. So I think we have to reflect on that. That's because I was talking to Blanca and I said I'm super busy, but I wasn't saying that I'm super busy. Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, because I never think that, because I know I made those choices to do that. So we have to realize that we make these choices, and it's us that have decided to participate. So if we reflect back on that, the outcomes we get are based on the choices that we're making. So if you're feeling like a victim, oh my God, I'm so busy, I don't know how to do this, then you're going to have negative outcomes. If you're feeling gratitude for the opportunities and that you have and the choices you made, you're going to feel positive outcomes. So a lot of times it's more about perception and the way you see it than what's actually happening to you. And that's what I find. I feel like two people can see the same thing and have two different interpretations. One can see it as opportunity, one can see it as responsibility. So know that you have the choice to make those choices to be there or not be there. And you also have the choice to see it the way you want to see it. So just going back to positive thinking, it's all about how you perceive the situation. Even being here, I can say, oh, I have to go talk to Blanca and be on this show, and now I have no less time. Oh my God, I could have been doing something else. Or I could say, hey, this is an opportunity to help educate people, support other people, and show them there's a different way to be. And both could be the truth. Choose the one I want.
To check. That's true. Well, thank you so much, Kunle. And the people, they see the program, you see you have two options. Go to Makami or ask to Blanca. At the same time, both is good for you, I think. Blanca, thank you so much. Kunle, thank you so much. See you in the next show.
No,
thank you, Giuseppe. See you next time.
take care.
And Kunle, I don't say it's the last time, and see you soon. Take care.
Okay, sounds good. Bye for now.
Bye.